members of the public gallery to the reconvened 21st August 2023 Ordinary Council meeting of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale, held on Wednesday the 23rd of August 2023 in the Council Chambers, Civic Centre, 6 Patterson Street, Mundijong. I declare that this recommencement of Monday's meeting is opened at 7 p.m. and acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Noongar people, and we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to advise members of the public gallery that the meeting is being audio recorded in accordance with council policy. Members of the public gallery are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. In accordance with clause 3.14 of the Shire's Standing Orders Local Law 2002 as amended, no business is to be transacted at this adjourned meeting of the council other than that specified in the notice of the meeting and that which remains unresolved. Therefore, the order of business for tonight's meeting, in accordance with clause 3.41 of the Shire's Standing Orders Local Law 2002 as amended, will commence from where council adjourned on Monday night at item 10, Chief Executive Officer Reports, item 10.1.4, proposed auxiliary dwelling, lot 13119 Peters Way, Oakford. I will just advise the meeting that Councillor Stroughton's is an apology for this evening's recommencement of the OCM meeting. Councillors, we will move to item 4.1.4. Do I have a mover for the motion before us, please? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Bias. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.5, section 31, reconsideration, proposed amendment to delete condition of development approval, lot 8726 Carborough Drive, Carter. Councillors, can I please have a mover for this motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move the alternate motion that was circulated on Monday.
Thank you, Councillor Coles.
Madam President, would you like me to read it out? Or
yes, Councillor Coles, you may read out the alternate motion that you've put forward.
Thank you. So it's that Council 1 defers consideration of the matter. 2, requests from the State Administrative Tribunal an extension of time for Council to consider the Section 31 request for reconsideration until 31st October 2023. 3, requests the CEO to engage a suitably qualified lighting expert in order to independently assess and advise Council on the level of light spill that occurs with the lights and whether that light spill is considered appropriate or not, given the expected amenity levels of the rural residential locality. And then 4, notes in the intervening period that the applicant may utilise the lights at any time up to 8 p.m. on any day.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. I have a question in regards to point 3 of your alternate motion. Who is responsible for the payment of the suitably qualified lighting expert to provide the independent assessment?
The Shire.
Through to the CEO or to the director, do we have any idea of what the cost of that report would be?
Thank you, Madam President. I would expect a peer review type document of around $5,000 would be that quantum of work.
Thank you. Councillors, do I have a seconder for the alternate motion? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? I am opposed to the motion. Councillor Coles, please open debate.
Thank you, Madam President. Very simply, I went out there to investigate the lighting, and I'm certainly no expert when it comes to lighting. And whilst I wouldn't go to the extent to say I'm an expert in consulting and talking to community members, I would say that I do enjoy talking to people, and certainly speaking to the people next door, there are some concerns. So as I explained to the residents, as councillors, we act on evidence, the evidence before us. And it's interesting that the last time this came to council, which was a couple of months ago, I actually opposed it because of the report that was provided to council by the applicant. And that report was unequivocal in the fact that it said that it complied. So that's why I opposed this. And here we are now with probably the State Administrative Tribunal agreeing probably on the same premise that the report was done and the report did comply. However, when I went out there last Thursday at about 6:20, it's quite clear that there is a greater light spill than 3 metres. And I think that is quite critical in relation to this. So going back to my previous point about how do we make decisions, we make decisions on the evidence. The evidence before us is my own eyes. My own evidence was that it was greater than 3 metres. I believe it's an amenity issue. Notwithstanding the report that the applicant had, there is an amenity issues quite clearly greater than 3 metres, and I believe that the applicants did circulate photos to other councillors. That lighting issue is to the south, and that is a block of land that's going to be sold at some stage, and it's quite clear, it's unequivocal that it's greater than 3 metres. So when we look at evidence, the only way to confirm or deny my assessment or my observations is to get an independent report done. It's not unusual for us to get an independent report done. I think that's a balance between what the applicant is after, and I have spoken to the applicant today, and he was aware of this alternate motion, and same with the neighbours. So I think this is a fair result. We can't always please everyone, and I know that I've been told that in this place several times, and I do struggle with trying to be the peacemaker and trying to get everyone happy. But I think this is a compromise that would be in the best interest of the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Councillor D'Agostino, would you like to speak or reserve?
Thanks, Madam President. Just quickly to concur with what Councillor Coles said in the sense of, I think an independent arbitrator, for want of a better word, would help what is clearly a confrontational and non-harmonious situation. I think it's quite important that we try and facilitate a resolution of this. And I think that I understand the expenditure, and no one is more conscious of spending ratepayers' money than Councillor Coles, but I think in this case it would be money well spent to try and progress a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. I don't necessarily disagree with the stance that Councillor Coles has taken, but the one thing I do disagree with is that normally when council has an item peer reviewed, it is at the expense of the proponent. It's not at the expense of the ratepayers as a whole. This item is not an easy item to make a decision surrounding. And I was quite interested in the comment that Councillor Coles made that he opposed this last time it came to council. But then that the State Administrative Tribunal has accepted the information and evidence that has been presented in the last report has been factual. That being said, I don't see why this would need to wait until the 31st of October for a decision from council. I think that if we are going to defer it, we should be able to defer it for 1 month. The reports have already been done. To be able to have somebody peer review that work should be something that is simple, that it can be done reasonably quickly. And I don't believe that the time frame that has been listed in this alternate motion is appropriate. I think it should be actually dealt with quicker than what has been listed, so that both the neighbour and the proponent can actually move forward with what they choose to do on their properties. Thank you. Is there any other councillor like to speak for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan.
Thanks, Madam President. I actually can see the pertinent points from both your words and Councillor Coles. I guess my concern is that I feel like we've been given some very conflicting evidence. Lights taken on mobile phones, pictures of lights taken on mobile phones are certainly not the most reliable thing to be working off, because as we all know, things can be made darker and lighter. And so, you know, we have images that are very, very different that have been presented to us in evidence. I understand there was a lighting expert that did an assessment. However, it wasn't independent, and the only way to get true independence is by getting it to done at the expense of the Shire, although, you know, agreeing with everyone that that's not ideal. On the other side, I certainly can understand Madam President's concerns with the 31st of October. To me, that does seem a long way away when we're considering these residents are wanting to get to a conclusion and know where they stand. But all in all, I definitely feel that the evidence that's been presented before us has been very conflicting and quite confusing. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. Is anybody else would like to speak against the motion? Thank you, councillor Atwell.
Yes, Madam Chairman, Madam President, sorry. My main objection is to the 31st of October because clearly there's only 4 people in this room who will be actually guaranteed to be here on the 31st of October. Thus, throwing this into a further, throwing whoever might come in to council at that time is going to have probably about a week to absorb all this. So what's taken us quite a bit of time to absorb and come to a conclusion, I don't think it's terribly fair to throw that at some people who are just virtually walk off the street into the council and expect them to be able to make a decision within a week. I think it's rather ridiculous, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Atwell. Is there any other councillor who would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Coles, would you like to close, please?
Thank you, Madam President. And can I just say from the outset, this has been a pleasant experience. This has been a very good debate, and I think that's a good thing. I would be minded, because I hear, Madam President, yourself and the Deputy, what you say about the time frame. I would be prepared to amend paragraph 2 to make that, and I'll have to be in the director's hands here, whether you and whether other people would be happy with a, you know, end of September as opposed to October. If that was amenable, I think then we can move forward. But certainly, I think all the other points have been covered off on. So perhaps a better way to do it for housekeeping would be, I'm still supportive of this motion. We've got a mover and a seconder. But if it was to not be successful, I'd foreshadow an alternate with paragraph 2 changing till the 21st or 31st. How many days in September? 30 September. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Coles. All those in favour of the motion before us? All those against? Motion is lost 3-5. Councillor Coles, you foreshadowed any motion?
I did, Madam President. And I'm in anyone's hands, whether it's you, if you're willing to give a date, or whether the director is, but certainly I'm open to suggestions as long as it's achievable.
Madam President, can we just ask the director how long the review would take if the council did resolve to do an independent review? How long would that take, and would that make it back to the September ordinary council meeting?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Certainly, it's not without its challenges to make September, but we would do everything within our power to expedite it. So 30th of September would be pushing it, if I was to be honest, because we are just going to have to be hopeful that we can find the right expert who's got a gap in their time frame to be able to do the work and get the agenda item ready to help us in updating the agenda item.
Madam President, there is a council meeting for the election in October. If the council was of a mind to pick that date, that it might be more achievable, Director, to have I think it's the 17th of October from memory. Manager of Governance, do you know the date to October council meeting off the top of your head?
If I was just going to ask that question, if we have a meeting, can we just change it to be presented at the October meeting prior to the election? That would give the officers a bit more time, I think. Hopefully, Director.
So, Madam President, the Manager of Governance is saying, in accordance with clause 10.23 of the standing orders, that a motion to essentially the same effect, even with the change of the date, could be argued the same effect, cannot be considered unless it's got the consent of the absolute majority. So if council did choose a date, the 17th of October or whatever date it was, that would just need to be resolved by absolute majority at that point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Councillor Coles, are you happy to move the foreshadowed motion with whatever wording you choose?
Yeah, if I can,
While Councillor Coles is working on that, Madam President, if I could ask a question to the CEO. So does it require a separate motion for council to reconsider that? Because I'm also mindful of standing orders 9.9, which is reopening matters that have already been, reopening discussion on matters that have already been resolved, and the substantial difference between the two motions. So if I could get some guidance from yourself on whether we need a separate motion to allow for that consideration.
I'll ask the Manager of Governance to provide some advice. Corporate Services, if you wish.
Yeah, I would concur with that and note that one of the conventions that is followed in this place a lot is, while it doesn't appear in the standing orders, is the idea of foreshadowed motions. And on many occasions, a motion has been lost and a foreshadowed motion has then been moved, and we don't proceed to the next order of business because the foreshadowed motion has been made.
President, some wording could be until after the October ordinary council meeting, October 2023 ordinary council meeting.
Prior to the October.
No, you're requesting the State Administrative Tribunal give an extension
Sorry.
until after
Yeah,
the.
so you need it to be reconsidered.
Might I make a suggestion, Madam President? Is it valid just to add an extra point in there to say for the lighting report to be presented to council in the October OCM? So the extension is still requested till the 31st to give staff time to, whatever that outcome happens to be at the council meeting, gives time to reply back to SAT, and it's still requested it comes to the October OCM.
If you want to move that, Councillor Mack, I think that's a good suggestion.
Councillor Mack, do you wish to move that?
Request the CEO present wording could be request the CEO present the outcomes of the lighting experts report to the October ordinary council meeting.
Mr. CEO, I already have a mover in Councillor Coles for the foreshadowed motion, whatever the wording may be. Councillor Mack, are you prepared to move or second the motion with an amendment?
Yes, Madam President, that sounds
Thank you.
0.5 added as an amendment, yes.
Thank you. Is there anybody opposed to the motion as it stands on the board? Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll need a reason for the difference in the officer recommendation, please.
to enable council to consider the decision once a peer reviewed report is prepared or is received. Once a peer review report is received. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Item 10.1.6, environmentally sustainable design considerations for development within the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Strange. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.7, final approval for 1 Southwestern Highway south of Abernethy Road access strategy, and 2 amendment to character area H of the Byford Town Site Local Development Plan. Can I please have a mover for this motion, please? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Bias. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.8, proposed Metropolitan Regional Scheme Amendment, proposed Parks and Recreation Reservation Jarrahdale, request for preliminary comment. Can I please have a mover for this motion, please? Councillor Duggan, you have your hand up. Thank you. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Bias. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.9, number 10, lot 500, Lampeter Drive, Mardella, draft master plan for consideration to undertake community engagement. Can I please have a mover for this motion, please?
Madam President, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with the removal of point 2, which is in relation to releasing the plan for community consultation.
Thank you, councillor Strange. Can I have a set?
Could I also suggest to Councillor Strange that there might be an amendment to point 4, which just says upon completion then of what will be the new point 2, request that be presented back.
Yes.
Sorry, Madam President, I need to find the button. Would we also need to amend the wording around the community and stakeholder feedback in the now point 3? Sorry, I'm just catching up. If I'm understanding that right, because the old point 2 would have been related to the community and stakeholder feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you, councillor Strange. Can I please have a seconder for the amended motion that we have before us, please?
So, Madam President, not at this stage, but what I would ask, if I could be indulged, a question to the mover. What does that actually mean? What's the intent? What does it mean by doing this?
The intent is that we establish the level of interest with the Minister for Fire and Emergency Services in terms of the potential DFES training facility before we advertise a master plan that's pretty much contingent upon it.
Thank you. I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.10, community safety.
Sorry, Madam President, we do need a reason for the difference for the officer recommendation. Councillor Strange.
The reason would be, as just explained in response to the question, so it's to ensure we're not advertising a master plan prematurely. Happy with that?
Item 10.1.10, Community Safety and Crime Prevention Plan 2023 to 2027. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, councillor Bias.
With a small grammatical change, Madam President, I'm a stickler for these things. It just says, and delivery of a women's refuges. So delete the S. And I'm going to be really pedantic here. Does it require a possessive apostrophe after women's?
If you're the mover of the motion, councillor Bias, and you'd like one to be there, then
I would like one to be
there you
there. No, after the S. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Bias. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.2, infrastructure service reports. 10.2.1, RFT 10/2023, Orton Road Telstra assets relocation revised quotation. Can I please have a mover for this motion, please? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.2.2, lot 123 and 124 Gordon Road access Serpentine. Councillors, you would be aware of the extra information that has been provided via email to council this afternoon. Has all councillors seen that information and read the information? Councillors, can I please have a mover for this motion?
Madam President, I'm happy to move option number 4.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Do I have a seconder for option 4 as moved? Thank you, councillor D'Agostino. Is there anybody opposed to this motion?
Madam President, not opposed, but I would like to just take a minute to digest it because the 4 options are quite different. Perhaps the CEO or the director could guide me if just to confirm that option 4 is the one where we would effectively fund, build and maintain the road. Yes.
That's correct. Option 4 would mean the Shire would fund $150,000 towards the capital cost of building the road. And after that, it will be an asset for the Shire to maintain.
Councillor Bias, does that?
No, thank you, Madam President. That does answer my question.
Thank you. Is there any councillors opposed to this motion?
Could I ask another question? Thanks, Madam President.
Councillor Atwell?
Don't know if the director could answer this, but are we actually setting a precedent here? Are there other? And I imagine, I do not know for sure, but over the years, many properties around here have been subdivided. There's families, things where families are built onto other properties. Are we opening Pandora's box? That's my main. I don't know if the director can actually answer that.
Director?
Thank you for the question. So officers have undertaken a desktop study on similar cases within the Shire, and we found 42 similar cases where there is a gazetted road reserve without the road being built on them. So there's 42 that we've identified. There might be more that we don't know yet, but in the report, there is a map that shows where those 42 are located. We further discussed or consulted with the Department of Land and Heritage on this issue, where they've confirmed that this is a common occurrence that they deal with daily, where residents buy the properties without the road being there. So it's kind of buyer be aware situation where due diligence is needed to find these restrictions before purchasing.
Madam Chairman, on that basis, I am opposed to this motion.
Thank you, councillor Atwell.
I have another question, if I can, Madam President.
Councillor Bias.
Through to the director, probably of finance, is the money budgeted for?
Not in the current budget, but the resolution does contemplate a variation to take money from the road reserve.
How much money is in the road reserve? Can you refresh my memory?
May I have a moment to look that up?
Of course. While the director's looking for that information, Madam President, so just confirming with the Director of Infrastructure Services, 42 gazetted road reserves without roads. I imagine it would be very hard to determine what length of road would be talking about, whether they're similar in size to this, much bigger, much smaller, variable.
Sure, thank you for the question. We didn't go to that level of detail on the desktop study, but looking at the plan that was attached to the report, the lengths are quite variable. As a guess, I would think this is one of the shorter ones, 80 meters of road not being built, which would be one of the shorter ones.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, councillor Bias.
May I ask a supplementary question to councillor Bias' question, please?
Yes, councillor Duggan.
So has there been consideration for this $150,000 for it to be taken from the road reserve? What roads would we look at sacrificing? Has there been that level of planning on where that money would come from and what other roads won't get rehabilitated or, made safer if that money comes from their place? Has that level of investigation been done prior to tonight's meeting?
Thank you for the question. We're not proposing to sacrifice or cancel projects from the current budget to fund this project. We're proposing that 150,000 should option 4 be endorsed. We're proposing that $150,000 will come from the reserve, which is unallocated to any specific project at the moment.
Thank you.
I assume that would be the reserve that if we had another culvert failure, for example, that would be the reserve that would need to draw on to do emergency works, things like that.
That's correct.
Just one more question. The director, you said 42 properties that are on in this same situation, but several of them could in fact be on the same road, possibly. But it does open up the question that if someone, there are numbers of gazetted roads that aren't made. If someone suddenly decided that they wanted to put a house, say an owner of a property out on somewhere on their property, and was able to subdivide, would we then be in the same position where we would have to provide the road, possibly?
Just to clarify, we have 42 cases of gazetted road reserves that don't have the road built on them, and not 42 properties.
Madam President, I think the Director of Corporate Services might be ready to answer the question about the road reserve balance. Potentially, he was looking like he was going to answer a minute ago. I'm not sure if he is now.
So at 30 June, the balance was $1.18 million. What I'm checking now is actually, have we budgeted to take any of that for this year? And the answer is no. So the balance is $1.18 million.
Thank you, Director. Director of Infrastructure Services, I have a further question following on from Councillor Atwell's questions. If we had an application to the Shire to build a residence on any of those 42 gazetted roads that are unmade, whose responsibility would it be to build the road for the access to that dwelling?
If I wanted to provide some professional
Director.
views on that,
Yes, Director.
I
Thank you.
think, say if we looked at the previous item, one of my previous items, the Jarrahdale MRS scheme amendment, for example, we actually do have an example where one of the privately owned lots in that area did come to the Shire last year, and they asked for the position of when their road would be built, and the advice we gave, which we were confident with in discussing with our lawyers, there's no requirement on the Shire to provide a thoroughfare because there's never been a thoroughfare in that example. So I think the legal advice similarly would hold that where there's no thoroughfare that's ever been in existence, there wouldn't be a requirement for us to build one.
Thank you, Director. Is there any more questions from councillors? Councillor Coles, would you like to open debate, please? I have. Councillor Atwell is opposed.
Thank you, Madam President. And again, I find the questions and the prelim work very refreshing. And it's a very, very difficult agenda item. And I guess it's very, very hard. And I've been on the record for saying you take the emotion out of stuff. But I guess for me, the emotion does play a heavy hand, I guess, in this decision. But I've got to remind myself to remove the emotion from this. So I guess from the outset, something needs to be done. The worst thing we can do is do nothing, notwithstanding the legal advice that we have received. I guess the other thing I'll say is I don't want to talk in riddles or use sayings, but it's the difference between what we can do and what we should do. And I think that's a key issue here. It's something that I think we should do as a council. As I said, notwithstanding the emotional side of it, and I think listening to the deputation on Monday night, there was certainly some concerns that were raised. And again, the key point I want to take out of the deputation was that this is not aimed at any fault of current staff, and I want to make sure that's on the record because the staff do a good job, and we certainly are not here casting dispersions on what could have been done in the past. But I guess the follow-on point from that is now that it's been identified, there is something we need to do. And what also weighs heavily on my mind is the comment the Deputy President made about precedents. And this will be a precedent. And that's something that I've had to grapple with over the last couple of days. And I guess, especially today, thinking, what does a precedent of this nature mean? I thought it was only 20 odd road reserves, and to be heard tonight there's 42 is of concern. But that concern, I believe, can be allayed with long-term financial plan. And we might acknowledge that we need to fix these reserves moving forward. They don't all have to be done immediately. We acknowledge what we've done. We've acknowledged the challenges of the past. And I'll use that term, challenges of the past. And I guess the other thing that resonates with me is a comment that we make about retrospective approvals, and they're always an issue for us. So maybe we can adopt the same process here, that now we understand this problem that's come to our attention, we now draw a line in the sand, or should I say line in the gravel, and we move forward. So those road reserves that do come to us prior to, 23rd or whatever we are today of August 2023, we look at fixing in a long-term financial plan. Doesn't mean they have to be fixed now, they can be fixed in the future. There any applications that come from now on, looking at road reserves and the like, new developments and subdivisions, we turn around and say, well, no, this is it. The decision's been made. Now that it's unequivocally out in the community, this is the situation we're in. As I said, this weighs heavily on my mind simply because of the precedents and the money. We all know that the issues we have with money and funding. But there is, I suppose, a couple of key points in relation to that. There is a road reserve. The road reserve is there. I would actually submit for these reasons. And for things, unforeseen things, should I use the term accident, unforeseen things, accidents such as culverts collapsing, that's why we pay money for insurance. And I believe that the staff are still trying to follow up with the insurance claim for the culvert, and I commend the staff for doing so. So yes, there are concerns about precedents, but I think we need to do something. Taking the emotion out of it, we can't take the financial cost out of it because that looms large, but I think we can do it using the road reserve, and it won't be at the expense of other road priorities. So difficult decision, but I do believe that this is probably the best of a particularly difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Councillor D'Agostino, would
Madam
you like?
President, can I just jump in with a very quick question?
Councillor Byers?
Councillor Coles mentioned, what we've done, alluding to the Shire. Can the director help me understand if this was happening right now, if there was a subdivision happening right now and a road was meant to go in, my understanding is the developer would be the one who funds it. Obviously, this is a historical matter, but I just want to understand if we were all sitting around the table back when this happened many years ago, it would be the developer would point to fund and construct the road and then hand that over as an asset in that transition. Am I understanding that correctly, please?
Yes, absolutely. At the lot creation stage, the developer would have been required to build the road.
So effectively, the developer at the point of time when this happened, and I fully appreciate it's historical matter, but it's the developer who's dropped the ball in this situation, and the Shire to a degree by not saying, hey, you should have built a road, where's the road? So if this was happening right now, it would be developer, you build the road, it becomes an asset, and then it gets handed over.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Byers. Councillor D'Agostino, would you like to speak or reserve?
I'll reserve. Thanks, Madam President.
Thank you, councillor D'Agostino. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak against?
Yes, I would, Madam President. Just before I actually do that, can I just confirm that this is actually a sealed road and not a gravel road?
Councillor Atwell, are you asking what the constructed part of the road is that is already there?
No. What we would build. Yeah. I read it as being sealed, which I consider is asphalt.
Thank you for the question. The new road that we will build will be a chip sealed road, not asphalt. It will be a bitumen sealed road, chip seal, because of the steep grade of the road. We think it's roughly 25% grade. It will get eroded, and for the cars to be able to actually traverse that steep grade, they will need a sealed finished surface so the tires would have traction without to be able to get up the hill.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Atwell.
Yes, Madam President, I find it extremely difficult to the whole situation, and I do sympathise with the people who own these properties. Unfortunately, if we are going to pick up the slack for mistakes or whatever else, or the lack of due diligence in the past of somebody, we're going to be in for a hell of a bloody walloping, because we will have to seal a number of roads, I believe. I may be proven wrong, but I believe that's that would happen. if I was in the same situation and actually picked up and saw that someone had their road sealed because of this, then I'm quite sure, and I'm quite sure that most of the people around the table would also say, well, okay, you've done it for this guy. Why aren't you going to do it for me? And there have been a number of times, at least the two that I can think of. One was Gobby Road, where we had a man constant or a family constantly coming to us to seal Gobby Road because it didn't think it was safe, etc. There was also the situation where we've had access to where there was only single access, which there is in quite a number of places for fire exits and that sort of thing. So unfortunately, the emotion I know is there, but you've also got to consider the fact that this could be a very, very expensive prospect for us for something that we are actually not responsible for. So on that note, that's the way I consider the matter anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Atchwell. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Mack?
Thank you, Madam President. I don't actually know if I'm somewhat for or against this motion as it stands. I'm probably somewhere in the middle of where we lie with this. And I guess I probably wanted to extrapolate a little bit on the comment that Councillor Byers made before with the question about where the Shire has had a role to play in this previously, potentially in the past, when the developer should have been perhaps made to put the road in. And perhaps I could foreshadow, if this was to be lost, that we could actually look at a variation of option 1 as an alternate motion, actually requesting a split 3 ways, whereby a third of the road was paid by the Shire and a third was paid by each of the 2 landowners. I know there might be a bit of messing around with having a look at rewriting the option to put that in, but just giving a bit of a middle ground, I guess, to give a balanced approach for each of the individual parties. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Mack. Is there any other councillors who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Byers?
I'll make my comment very, very quick, Madam President. Going on the director's advice around the 42 gazetted road reserves and noting that while we don't have the exact numbers, this is probably on the smaller side. If all of them were the exact same as this, we'd be looking at $6.3 million. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Byers. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for the motion?
May I ask a question, please?
Councillor Duggan?
So I understand that there's 42 road reserves, but not all of them are necessarily heading to properties. I think about Robertson Road, which is on the east side of the railway line. So do we actually know how many of these road reserves are heading towards properties that have got no other access way to get to them? Because I think that makes this a more relevant conversation rather than saying we've got 42 road reserves that don't have developed roads on it. Do we have any idea?
Director?
We haven't investigated to that level. It was on the desktop study to basically see where the gazetted road reserves are without the road assets. So we've compared our road asset data against the land gate information on the gazetted roads.
Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Coles, would you like to close, please?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. Again, very difficult. I probably agree with nearly everything that everyone else has said in this room. It's difficult. It's a difficult position that we find ourselves in, but you know, do what you need to do. And I mean that sincerely. It's very, very difficult. And I think the fact we've actually had these questions and discussions tonight is a healthy thing for everyone moving forward. The only thing I would say in conclusion, and please don't take this as a motive, it's I had to warn myself not to be emotional, but I suppose for me, we do have a duty of care, and what would happen, notwithstanding the legal advice that obviously hasn't been tested in a legal sense, do we have a duty of care to residents in the community? As I said, just think about that, and it's a difference between what we can do and what we should do. As I said, it is a very, very difficult motion. So, yeah, I'll leave it to everyone to make their mind up. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Coles. All those in favour of the motion before us? All those against? Motion is lost 2-6. Councillor Mack, you foreshadowed a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll probably need to seek some guidance here from the director. Essentially, it would be to put forward option 1 with a couple of small differences in that. Point 4 would read, request that the CEO write to the affected properties advising that council's adopted position that it will only agree to design and construct the 80-metre section of Gordon Road to a 4-metre wide sealed road, subject to the written agreement of the owners of lot 123 and 124, that the 2 owners pay the costs upfront to the Shire, split evenly 3 ways between the 2 owners and the Shire. Point 2, 2 owners consent to signing a deed of agreement, which would be supported by and subject to caveat of their property title for the payment of 1/3 of the total cost of the road construction to the Shire upon the sale or transfer of ownership. And whichever alternative is consented to by the 2 owners, cost to be met by the owners up front. We would also probably, I would suggest, need to put an extra point in before point 6 to allow for the movement of funds if point 4.2 was to be agreed upon, that we would need to find or transfer amount of $50,000 upfront from the road reserve to this particular project.
Might just ask Reza and Fraser to come over and help us draft the wording up if we can. Please.
Madam President, this is a very complex matter. I'd be happy to move that we adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes to allow full collaboration of the officers to get this right.
Thank you, councillor Byers. Can I please have a seconder to adjourn? Thank you, councillor Duggan. All those in favour? 10 minutes. Thank you.